Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Python lesson series. Today, we will go over the fifth lesson. This is, again, Dr. Jennifer Lee. The topics for today would be the most marketing related compared to all of the topics that we have covered so far in the Python lessons. So as marketers, we often want to understand how consumers think about our products. So one way to do that is to review and analyze the text type of review, product review data that we can find online. So that's the main reason why we're learning text analysis methodology, mainly by using a package called TextBlob on Python. And towards the end of today's lesson, we'll also go over the sentiment analysis, which is a simple way to quantify the consumers or customers' emotions towards our brand, also using text type of information. Okay, so we're going to move on to the coding environment here and start with the notes. So the first thing we need to do is to update PIP or install PIP. So first thing, if you don't have that, we should first install PIP, which is the package installer for Python. So you might need many different types of packages, but by first having that PIP, you can then start installing the different types of packages. Once you do that, you will need a package called TextBlob using the PIP. So what is TextBlob? It is a Python library. So TextBlob basically provides us with a vast amount of information, specifically around this word means this type of information, or this type of word is positive or negative in terms of the emotion. So it's a very vast information that describes basically what a particular English word would mean. So it's a library for processing textual data. It provides a simple API for dividing into common natural language processing, in short, NLP. Tasks such as part of speech tagging, noun phrase extraction, sentiment analysis, which is specifically what we're going to cover today, or classification, translation, and more. So there are different types of functions that TextBlob will help you run. So here, note that there are many different types of libraries for text analysis in Python. So TextBlob is one type. It's a good starting point. And I chose that because it's very simple to understand, especially in the beginning. But please do note that each type has its own limitations. I will also introduce some critical limitations of TextBlob. There are other examples, other options for you, like spaCy or NLTK, that you can use for text analysis as well. Today, we will use a data called corpora. So we will also download the corpora data. Okay, so we'll start with the beginning, first installing the PIP. So what you have to do is simply type the following codes. So for me, it's saying requirement already satisfied because I already have done this before. But as long as it's showing that it's successfully installed, that's good. You have that ready for you. And the next stage was to install the text blob. So you have that. And there are some the corpora data set that I want you to download. Which can be done through this code. Okay. All right, so the preparations are done. We'll first start the first topic for today. So we'll use text blob with combination combined with pandas. We covered working with pandas last class in our fourth lecture. So I'll just type in everything that you'll need to do here. So copy those codes that I just wrote. What we're doing here is because we already installed text blob, now you can start importing text blob in Python. So that's what basically we're doing with these codes here. We're importing it to let the system know that we want to use that. So run that code. And then now we need to bring in two data sets. So today I want you to work on two different data sets today. which are both extracted from the Yelp, which is a restaurant review platform. So these are the two files that I want you to download from our website. And one file is about the information about each restaurant business. And the other file is the information about the reviews that are left for each type of business. So one is the business file, which looks like this. I'll just quickly go over just to show you how they work, how they look. So it contains the address information for each restaurant, the attributes of the restaurant, business ID, which is unique for each of the business, the category, the city, the hours, and further location information like the latitude and longitude, the name of the business, postal code, the count of the reviews, the star ratings, and the state that it's located in. Whereas the review file has as you can see from the text column here, it just lists all of the reviews. And it also has the business ID, which overlaps with the business data set. So we can further down link this review data frame with the business data frame using this overlapping business ID column, so that we'll eventually find, we can, if we wanted to, we can eventually find out all of the text reviews for that designated business. And also combine that with the business related information. So what you can do is to separately select each file and just simply pull them on Python, just like how we did in the last lesson. But I'll show you another trick, because oftentimes you work with multiple data which are in this one big folder. So here, this is the folder name is Yelp, and I have two data here, but you may down the road work with like 10 different Excel files within the same folder. So I'll teach you how to work with multiple data file within the same folder by assigning a name to the entire folder's directory instead of each file. So first thing we could do is, instead of clicking that file name, just click the folder, like any background of the folder, and then just copy that entire folder's directory. So copy the folder Yelp as path name, and assign a name to that folder. And just assign the entire folder URL to that. So that we can do is assign a data frame, the business data frame, and have pandas read CSV, and then just simply write the folder. And then write the remaining file name. Here it's business _ sample.csv, so I can do that, business CSV. And then also have the other file, the review file. Just double checking, it's review _ sample.csv. Okay, so that way, instead of pulling, if you know the exact file name, this could be an easier way for you to work with multiple data sets. So it's really up to you. I'm just showing different ways to import the data sets. So as I emphasized last class, you always have to first check how the data frame works. That's number one thing to do. Let's do that. It seems that it's imported. And I'm seeing all of the columns that we just reviewed. Yep, so it looks good. And there are a total of 14 columns and 313 rows. So it means we have total 313 unique businesses. Let's also check the review data frame and how it looks. Yep, it looks great. It has everything. Yep, and it has 5,000, more than 5,000 rows, which means we have more than 5,000 reviews for that 300 or so businesses. Let's see how many reviews we have, or how many different, or what are the businesses that have the most number of reviews. We learned sorting last class, so let's use that. Or sort under bar values, it has the S. And let's try to check what are the review counts. So remember, towards the end in the business data frame, we had the review counts for each business. So let's sort them in descending order. Or let's sort that in the ascending order, actually, or descending order, actually. That way we can find out which one has the most number. So we want to do descending order. So ascending equals false is what we want to do. So the one that is in Jones Boulevard in Las Vegas. So apparently I'm seeing this entire data frame is about Taco Bell's restaurants only. The review count is 56. That's the largest number. So the one in Jones Boulevard has reviewed by the most number of people. Let's also do some slicing. Let's slice certain rows and columns. And what did we use last class? The .loc, yes. So let's focus on that one, the first one, the one on the Jones Boulevard, just because it has the most number of reviews. Let's focus on that for now. So let's assign a name to it. Data frame under Bart Jones. That's a new name. And then we're using the review data set here because we want to know like what are the actual text reviews that were written for that specific business on the Jones Street. So let's see which columns we're interested in. We're interested in slicing the business ID. The business ID was the column that appears here, right? So business under bar ID. And we want that to equal to the one in Jones Street, one on Jones Street. So Jones Boulevard, let's copy that entire business ID and paste that. So business has to be equal to this business ID so that we're only to let them know that we're only slicing the business on the Jones Street. And what are the columns are we interested in? We are interested in the star rating. We're also interested in the entire text review, which was the column name was text. And let's say we're also interested in the useful score. That's the peer ranking peers rates on each of the review. Was that review useful or not? Okay, so we're slicing. Ooh. Oh, so what I forgot to do here is to have the square bracket here. It has to, so because these are the column names, and I am creating a list of the column names that I want to slice. So I should have started with that square bracket. My bad. It happens all the time. So you're not alone. I do that as well. Yep, so with that simple fix, we just sliced it. So let's see how that sliced columns look like. So these clearly are the reviews only for that business on the Jones Street. And it's this much long. And it has all the text as well as the useful score for each review. Great. Let's say we are, so let's from now on, let's focus on this sliced data frame. And let's say we're interested in the star rating and the average star ratings for that business. So we'll know like how many stars this business got. It's showing that 2.8 stars was given on average. And how about the average useful score? Just by seeing these, it shouldn't be that large because there were a bunch of reviews that scored 0 in their useful score. But like this one, for instance, has rated 6 score. So this one seems to be the most useful review. But let's first look at the average. So average is less than 1 for all of these 53 reviews. Hmm. Okay, so one thing you will notice here is the reviews, not the entire contents within the text column is showing at the moment. They're just doing dot, dot, dots and not writing the whole thing, not displaying the whole thing. So what you can do here is to, if above does not show the entire column info, try this. Pandas set option display dot max column width, call width actually. So it's going to display the entire width of the column. So once we do that, we can check if it has changed. So with that code, we can now read the entire text for the text column. So maybe we can browse that one review, or here's another one. This review was rated a useful score, the 7, with a useful score, which is much larger, much higher than the other. Let's see how the text is showing. Was on the way to friend's house and stopped for a quick bite to eat. Ordered volcano burrito, layer burrito, and they were fast, accurate, and the food was decent. It's Taco Bell. What do you expect? So I don't know why the text is broken a little bit, but apparently what it's doing is it's kind of summarizing the menu's names, listing them. So maybe that's one of the reasons why it had the high useful score. There was another one towards the end. So this one also has a high score. I suppose this location isn't big on customer service. After reading reviews, hasn't caught on the eyes. The fast food places around, pretty lucky. 5-mile radius. I'm sitting here, drive through, and it's 12:42. So it's very concrete. It provides others with some specific information. Maybe that's why a lot of people rated it as useful. So you can play around with this data. You can first browse through before starting that quantitative analysis of the entire data set. All right, so that shows the max column width. So let's see. Let's now start working on specific reviews. Just checking to. So the first one, this first one rated 1 star. The second one rated 5 star, right? So let's focus on these two, and let's name the first one as a bad review because it's 1 star. The second one as the good review because this has 5 star out of 5. So let's focus on those two from now on. So let's assign a name to the good review. And we're still working on the one on Jones. And we want to use the text column, but the good review, it's indexed 14. And the bad review, we also want to focus on the text, and the index is 7. It's on the 7 IP. Okay, so let's see what's showing. Yep, and the entire text is showing as I intended. So it's properly coded. So here, now let's start using text blob finally. So text blob, and then the parentheses, we want to work on that entire text that we assigned as good. And let's call that as my blob. And that's just a name that I want to put for that. So here what I'm doing is assign my blob to analyze the good type of review using text blob function. So here using this my blob, we will first start working on the words and sentences. Okay, so first thing, when we're working with text type of data, it's always the easiest if we make each of the words into a list. So one way to do it is, to use that assigned text, the review read by text blob, and then dot, and then we want to make everything into the list of words. So this is not showing the entire paragraph anymore, but it's now has broken the entire text into each of the word, and each word is placed as an item within this long list. Okay. We can do things like measuring how many sentences there were within this text. So the entire length within the MyBlob. And if we broke down into each sentence, there were 4 sentences total. Or we could be curious about the number of words. There are 50 words within this entire text. So these are some basic features that we can use using the text blob. We can also do word counts. How many words each of the words, how many times each word appears in the entire text. It's simple. We can just use the word underbar counts, which will return a dictionary of each word and its counts. So basically, we can identify the word frequency using this code. So the result is like this. So we now have the dictionary instead of list. And the dictionary is the combination of each word and the frequency. So the word this appeared one time, the word place appeared one time, so on and so forth. So each word either appeared once or twice in the entire text, as we can quickly check from the dictionary result. Let's say you're only interested in knowing the word count for a particular word, like I. So we want to know how many times the author wrote I. So the word I has appeared twice. That's another way of counting the words. Okay. Now let's move on to the topic of lemmatize and singularize. So lemmatize means that we can change words into their basic forms. So in English, we have like the past, present, and future tenses, like I will go, I went, I have gone. So this lemmatize function will basically try to change the words, all of them, into their most basic forms. Singularize is similar. It's changing all plural words into singular forms. I want to warn you that these functions have limitations in TextBlob. So TextBlob, as I mentioned, it has its own limitations, and it's not the strongest one to limit in terms of lemmatize or singularizing features. But I still wanted to show you that these are something that you could do using text analysis methodologies. Let's say we want to work on a list of words like cats, cows, corpora. So notice that this is the plural form of cats, plural form of cow, and plural form of corpus. And let's use lemmatize. So what it does is it'll try to make everything into its basic form. So in this case, it worked. Similar, maybe rocks. Let's see if it's gonna do the job. The second one, which was not in the simple form, the basic form, was changed. So far it's working. We were working on the MyBlob before, so let's see if that's gonna work with that as well, the review for that one on the Zone Street. So this is the new list that we are given. Let's compare that with the entire original text. So this place is my late night after work craving, the late shift. So here you notice the word folk what used to be the word folks. So at least this one has changed into its basic form. Rock and the manager. Also manager, it used to be managers, but that S is gone. So it does the job to some extent, but as I said, it's not that, not perfectly perfect, but these are the different things you could do. Instead of like comparing it one by one, we can do this now because it's a short sentence, but we won't be able to do this if it's like pages long. So we can write a loop to compare side by side each of the words and see if the lemmatized function has changed its original form for each word. So we can write a for loop to compare the original versus the lemmatized. So for word, each word in my blob broken down into each words. What we want to print is a formatted string, which has the original word as well as, the lemmatized word. So each word that has gone through the lemmatized process. And you just need to close out that quotation mark. What this does is this. So this is more ideal, right? It's side by side comparing the original form. So the word folks has turned to the basic form folk, and managers has changed to manager. So this is another way to apply the for loop as well as the formatted function to do the side by side comparison. All right, let's move on to the next topic, which is correcting. So sometimes we want to correct some wrong words. So I'll just give you some examples using text blob. Let's say I wrote a phrase, wrong text. So let's say, so clearly wrong text is not correct English. So I want to correct this. And what text blob did is it corrected into long text instead of wrong text. So it did its own, it made its own best guess on the most ideal form given the next word. It could have been long text, it could have been the wrong text, but TextBlob has chosen this. Oops, right. Let's try something else. Like, let's say I made a bunch of typos. This is a difficult situation. So apparently it has a lot of typos. So let's see if the correct feature works. And it's doing a pretty good job there. This is a difficult situation, so everything is correct here. Just one more example maybe, because I'm excited that it's working very well. I have so many typos in those sentence. Let's see if that works. I have so many types in this sentence. So clearly it's not doing the perfect job all the time. But it's doing its best. Okay. Let's move on to the next one. WordNet. So WordNet basically is a network. So by using WordNet, Python will help us create a network of the words that we input. So sometimes we want to understand what is the synonym of a particular word. Sometimes we want to understand what is the definition of a word. Sometimes we want to know what is the word that is closest to another word. So WordNet is also a library which contains the relationship between different each of the words that exist in English. So we can find some meaningful implications from this. Let's see what we can find. In the MyBlob, going back to the MyBlob that we came up with. What this will do, it returned the 16th word within that entire group of sentences, and it was managers. Let's say I want to work on knowing the synonym, the synonyms of the word managers. It's the thoughts and sits. Oof, making this mistake. Yep, it's myblob.words with the 16th word. I want to know the synonyms, and it's showing first synonym is director, the other one is coach, and it makes sense, right? They're very close to the word manager. Working fine. Let's say I want to know the actual definition of this first synonym. So within that group of synonyms that it gave us, I want to focus on the first one, the index number 0, and also know the definition of that. And it's saying that the definition of director is someone who controls resources and expenditures. How about for coach? It's in sports, someone in charge of training an athlete or a team. So the definitions are different, but they clearly know that they mean something similar. Oh, never mind. So I guess that's it for the WordNet features. So synonyms, they have their own system to evaluate how close a certain word is to another word. And that's using their own network. They're just giving us these synsets. So that's what we can do with this. Let's move on to the final topic for today, which is sentiment analysis, finally. So as I said, as marketers, we often want to understand the positive versus negative emotions that a customer has towards our brand or our company or products. So sentiment analysis does that job. So there are some concepts that you have to know, like polarity scores. We can get the polarity scores for a given text using sentiment analysis, which is a float within the range, ranging from -1 to +1. So polarity scores, they always fall under this range. It could be -1, it could be -0.5, it could be -0.3, or it could be plus 0.7. So what does that number mean? -1, if polarity score is -1, it means the person is feeling negative sentiment. Here, the person is the person who wrote that text. So that text is rated as negative emotion. One, on the other hand, defined a positive sentiment. Sometimes there are negation words like not, or never, or like cannot. These are the negation words in English. They tend to reverse the polarity. So not happy means a bad thing. Not sad means a good thing. Next thing to know is that text blob has semantic labels that help with the fine-grained analysis. So what that means is, for instance, emoticons or exclamation mark, emojis, they are to some extent also interpreted correctly by text blob. Besides the polarity score, we also have something called subjectivity score. That is a float also within a range. Within a range between 0.0 to +1. So there's never a negative subjectivity score. 0 is very objective and 1 is very subjective. So this scores such a subjectivity of the particular text. What it does is it quantifies the amount of personal opinion and factual information contained in the text. So if the system understands that that text is something related to someone's subjective opinion, for instance, like, I feel happy and I feel great about this. This is a very subjective sentence, whereas today the sun is rising at 7 a.m., which is not that subjective, right? It's an factual information. So it's probably going to rate around 0 subjectivity score. Okay, a couple more notes here. In measuring the subjectivity score, let's see. I'll also just first make a note here. Text blob, what it does is it has one more parameter called intensity. So what it does is text blob calculates subjectivity by looking at the intensity of each word. So you could just think of it this way. There's a separate parameter called intensity, which is used to come up with the subjectivity score. Intensity determines if a word modifies the next word. So for instance, in English, we have adverbs, right? Adverbs are often used as modifiers. So which means very good is more intense than good. So that's another logic behind the intensity level. So this adjective very is enhancing the intensity, and that might further enhance the subjectivity score. Okay, I guess that's enough for the explanations, and I'll give you some examples. I'll try to write a very subjective sentence. This is also a sentence that I tend to say a lot because I'm a big tennis player. I played tennis and it felt good. Let's measure the sentiment. It's showing the polarity score as 0.87, which is on the very high side. So it's a very positive sentence. Subjectivity score, it ranges 0.6. So it's, well, higher than 0.5 for sure. So it's on the more subjective side. If you remember from the previous, we had this good review coded as good. So let's use that. Text blob, good. Let's measure the sentiment. It's saying this particular one had the polarity score of minus 0.045. Subjectivity score also being on the low side, 0.2. So let's try reading it again. This place is my late night craving. Rock, and the manager accommodating. They're reverent. I know I can come back next time. It's cooked. They're fun to talk while waiting for food too. So, well, for me, as a human interpreter, I think it would be on the good side, on the positive side, but somehow the system is rating it as being kind of on the neutral side. The emotion it saw it's very close to 0, so it's pretty neutral, with the subjectivity being on the more objective side. So I'm pretty sure it's depending on the way the person has written. And also it could depend on how the system interprets some of the words, like the folks rock, and maybe the system didn't understand this jargon rock. It tends to mean something positive, but maybe it have not interpreted that way. So, but that's what we have here. It could be the limitation. How about for the bad review we had? Let's try it. So compared to the good one, the polarity score is much lower, so it's much more negative. Subjectivity score is slightly lower, so it's saying it's more objective than the good one. All right. So as I said, there are some limitations. However, because it does quantify everything in a very efficient way, still it's a great tool for marketers. And text blob could have some limitations in some way, but you may also refer to other tools, other packages like Spacy or NLTK. It's really up to you, but the logic behind everything they tend to be similar. It's just depending on the type of data that you have, one tool might be better than the other. All right. I was mentioning that negation words. And here I will also show you one limitation. Before that, I'll just show you some cases that this works well, because I don't want to just give bad examples and limitations before showing you the good ones. So we'll show you some good examples. I am the best, and it's saying polarity score being at its maximum. So that's a good one. How about this? This is not good. And it's saying it's pretty negative. So I think it's pretty accurate in that sense. Now I'll show you some limitations. That example. I do not feel great. See what it gives. So clearly it's not a good sentence, but it's saying its polarity score is high. So this is a limitation, and the reason for this limitation could be potentially due to the fact that it measures the polarity based on the adjectives the text contains. So it could have seen this word grade and it mistakenly overemphasized on that word. I won't give you much details about this, but one way to troubleshoot this is for you to use a function called ngram to detect the negation words. So ngram, I'll just quickly explain the logic behind that. What you could do is to measure the distances between certain word pairs within a sentence. So for instance, you can measure that the word not is only 2 words apart from the word grade, because 2 is not a super high number. We can set the system so that when not appears within two positions from this positive word, we have to negate that, and the system should come up with bad polarity, negative polarity score. Those are some of the cleaning process that you could go through when you actually have a project in front of you. Okay, good news is, let's say you changed that sentence to have that negation word appear closer to the adjective. It may solve the issue. Luckily, we can see that it's correctly rating it as a negative word, so it works. So again, it's possibly due to the positions of the negation words, and that's something that you might have to manually fix if you were to text and analyze a large text data. All right. Okay, so I'll show you some basics of how to work with this n-gram function later on. But before doing that, let's go over one of the last topics for today. Let's say we want to see the average sentiments across multiple. So far, we have only designated one particular person's review and analyzed their emotions. But let's say you want to combine everything for this business and just calculate the average emotions. Let's focus on those 50-something reviews that were given to the Taco Bell on the Jones Street. So what this .text does is it will return all contents in the text column, the original text column. What did I do wrong here? I needed the underbar. I had the underbar, not dots previously. That's how I set it up. Yep. So it's returning all the contents, everything from that 50-something reviewers of this particular one Taco Bell business. So now that we have everything, let's turn all reviews, because right now it's not, it's just printing the entire text here, but we would probably need to create a list to continue working on this. How to do that is make everything into list.toList code. And now each reviewer's review is appearing as an object item within this entire list of 50-something reviews. And as I said, our goal here was to aggregate everything into one big text and just get the average emotion from all of those 50-something people. You can use join function to make the list into just one big string. How to do that is to do .join. Simply, I'm joining in everything so that it's now within one big quotation. So now that we have this, I'll just copy this. Or I can assign a name to this. And let's say, sorry, we want to use text blob to use that entire joined block. And it's gonna run that. So text blob has used, and we want to measure the entire sentiment of that entire text. So here we can see that the average polarity score for all of the reviews is better than 0. It's on the positive side. People's subjectivity score was kind of on average, so it was a good mix of subjective and objective information within the entire reviews. This is the way to aggregate everything and come up with the one big emotional sentiment score. All right, so that's it for today. I'll just quickly mention or give you some examples of Ngram before we go, just because I mentioned that. So what is Ngram? What an Ngram does is, and once again, Ngram is a good tool to use if your negation words don't seem to properly negate the emotion. By using the Ngram feature, what it does is parse sentences into group of words. I'll show you examples later. It's useful to understand which words appear near a focal word. So we can set all of the adjectives as focal words and then measure how the negation words appear next to the focal words. And maybe we can set it up so that if a negation word appears less than 2 positions next to the focal word, we have to reverse code the emotion that we got. That's just one example. You could set it as 2 positions. You can set it as 3 positions, depending on the type of text that you're working on. To divide, it can also divide a sentence into grammatical parts and identify the parts and their relations to each other. So I'll just quickly show you an example of what we can do with that using the myblobs. Let's say we want to parse them into into a list of 5 words that are neighboring to each other. So what it does is it first creates the list of the first 5 words. The second 5 words, notice that are overlapping here because in the third 5 words, so on and so forth. So using this list, conceptually what you could do, theoretically what you could do later on is to measure how, let's say, where is a positive word? We see any negation word and a positive word? Not really. I'll give you I'll just create an example. Let's say it's a sentence is parsed into these 5 words. Not, I'm just making up an example. Not very happy about. Let's say this is the 5 list of words. And what we could do is potentially measure that or analyze if not is appearing next to happy. And if such instances appear frequently, then we'll have to consider reversing the emotion score that we can get from this sentence. Does it make sense? So Ngram will be a good starting point, but eventually what you want to do is to consider how negation works and positive versus negative adjectives work together. So I'm thinking, because we were before, if you remember, we were using this review to measure the polarity score, and it didn't come out very accurately, right? It was this review, although it's clearly very positive, they had negative polarity score. I would suspect the reason was that this person didn't use that many positive adjectives in this entire review. So although with the combination of different words, we as human understand this is a pretty positive comment, but I mean, due to the fact that TextBlob tends to rely on positive, negative adjectives to come up with the polarity score, I think that's when this confusion came from. But it's good to know that, because you can prevent such things to happen in the future. Okay, so this is really the end of the lesson. And what we learned today was to, well, parse a specific text and understand what the positive, negative emotions that TextBlob helps us to interpret from out of a particular text, and hopefully everything makes sense, and hopefully it'll down the road help you with your marketing tasks in the future once you graduate. Okay, so thanks all for your attention again, and good luck with the rest of your program or study or wherever you are. Okay, bye-bye and take care. It was great to have you all. See you soon.